Welcome to Lead Like a Girl, where we are empowering everyday women through our stories. I'm your host, Jessica Smith, and I began this journey by sharing my life story. Now, I've joined forces with my longtime friends, Jamie and Corlin, to keep this party going. We met many years ago as young sales girls in our 20s, driven and quickly rising to the top of our industry. As the years went on, life happened, and we all found ourselves in new companies and completely different industries, still striving for success in it all. Career, family, faith, fun. Now, it wasn't easy, but we never stopped moving. Get ready for our real conversations, inspiring stories, and our big life lessons as we share it all. The good, the bad, and the funny. Welcome to Lead Like a Girl. Welcome to another episode of Lead Like a Girl. So listen, guys, I need you to do me a favor. We have a lot of listeners outside of YouTube. So listen, I didn't put this lipstick on for nothing. I need you to tune in, Lead Like a Girl Lab on YouTube. Subscribe, follow, share, like, all of that good stuff. Also follow us on all social media, Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and all that good stuff. Also, there's new Lead Like a Girl merchandise. We have some new fun colors and designs. We're coming out with some new stuff for the fall. So check out leadlikeagirllab.com for your new swag. So let's jump right in. Today, I want to talk about a topic that's very timely for me, and I'll tell you a little bit about why. But today's topic is when you don't get the job, okay?
So is this a spoiler alert?
We've all been there, right? And if you haven't, I used to have a pastor that used to say, keep on living. So if you've never been there, keep on living because it's going to happen when you don't get the job. So this topic, like I said, is timely for me. Just went through a long, painful interview process and I didn't get the damn job. All right. So I want to start off with an icebreaker. Listen, whichever one of you guys can relate to this, doesn't have to be both of you, but I'm sure one of you can relate to this. Tell me about the job that either you really wanted or really needed and you didn't get it. Let's start there.
I got a great story for this. So if you remember back a few episodes, we were talking about my timeline in my career. And when I was working for the company, they changed owners. And so the new owners were there. And I just felt it was time to jump ship. Well, it happened to be at the same time that I found myself with my first child, pregnant. So I was job searching.
This is a great story.
Yeah, I was
job hunting. How pregnant were you, by the way? Just tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a solid 6 or 7 months. I had a job. I had like the basketball under my shirt.
Like
pregnant.
Visibly pregnant.
Like,
yeah,
right.
So,
like really pregnant. Because you
totally.
can kind of be pregnant, but like really pregnant. Okay.
Yeah, no, very, very pregnant. Like this is a definite, yes, this is a 2 lines on the strip. This is
like I'm gonna be on maternity leave in like 3 months.
Correct.
Hire me.
So I sent my resume in, got a phone call back, talked with their screener, great phone conversation. She put me through for an appointment with their sales manager. We talked for probably 20, 25 minutes, which is kind of a long time, I felt like at the time for a phone interview. But it was just laughing and just talking about business, sales expertise. So he was like, okay, I'm going to be in town this week. Can you meet me on Thursday or whatever it was at 4:00? And it was a perfect job too, because if you remember, it was a restaurant purveyor salesperson, and I have restaurant background experience. I've been a salesperson for a long time. I felt that this would be a great transition and it would be super fun. So I am ready. I walk in, I've got everything together, rehearsed everything. And I walk into the room and I'm sitting there in front of 2 dudes. And they look at me and they almost like you could see on their face, like, please don't be Corlin. Please don't be Corlin. And I walk in, I'm like, hi, I'm Corlin. And they're like, one look in my eyes and about 5 looks at my belly. And you could feel the mood in that room just, oh. And my conversation, I probably was in there for maybe 20 minutes. Like, all right, well, that's all the questions we have. We'll let you know. We've got several other candidates we need to interview. And it was just, I just knew that this was not going to be my spot. And to top it off, they never called me. They never called me. They never got an email. I never got a response. So I had to reach out to them and said that I had this interview. And they're like, yes, they decided to go with a different candidate. So I was really disappointed.
Which is really unprofessional, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
I think
But it happens all the
general,
time.
Like, let the people know that you didn't get it. I mean, be honest and transparent. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, Corlin, just so you know, that's kind of like sometimes when your voice doesn't sound like you're Black and you show up to the interview.
I get that all the time, actually.
and then they see you and they're and I'm not going to say that this has happened to me, but I recently actually had a friend tell me when I was just talking about not getting the job, he made reference to having this great rapport with a hiring manager on the phone and showed up and they were like, Travis? And the look on their face. And he said, what you just said made me think of that. And he was like, yeah. And he said it was very obvious that they did not expect. And so he didn't get the job and he did not get a response. And just like you said. So, yeah.
How about when your name is Jamie and everyone thinks you're a man?
Right.
Oh, now you're talking about back in the day when it was just your resume they were looking at, right?
Oh, emails. Like all of my like new clients, they get my email and they think my name's Jamie and they think I'm James. And you would not believe Mr. Knievel all the time. And I'm
that tells you something though. That means that you're strong in your communication, that they just assume, right, that you're a man. So I would take that as a compliment.
I could be strong in my female communication.
That's true.
I feel like though, I mean, that's just kind of what happens when you work in a male dominated industry, right? People just assume like we're in the boys club and everybody in here follows suit, and that's just not the case.
I cannot believe how many times I've been answered, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Knievel. And I'm like, and I will literally every single time, I'm a girl.
I was going to say, do you correct them?
Absolutely,
so when it comes to not getting the job, does anybody have any like really good advice that you have been given about not getting the job? And I'll share mine first. And that is, I think the best advice I got when it comes to not getting the job is when I was told by a mentor that sometimes interviewing for a job is not about getting that job. So I think that really taught me a lot. And it was really, sometimes it's about the exposure that you get in that process, or it's about who you met in that interview process. And that is definitely held to be true for me. I think that was the best advice that I've gotten when it comes to not getting a job. What about you guys? Anything?
Tell me the question again, because I had a good answer and then you started talking and I was so involved in your answer that I forgot what my answer was.
So the question was, tell me the best piece of advice that you've gotten from someone else in regards to when you didn't get the job.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'm sorry I did that, but feedback.
It's been a long day, y'all. It's pretty late today.
It's like 9:00 at night on a Saturday.
Right. Matter of fact, this is where we're at if we're really being honest.
I know. It's feedback. It's
so much wine.
It's if you didn't get the job, whether they let you know you didn't get it or you knew you didn't get it, asking for the feedback. What did I need to have? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? If I wanted the job, what could I have done differently? Some of it you can't control. Some of it is like your schooling. Okay, you know what? I don't have a bachelor's degree, so I can't go there and say like, oh, I'll get that for you. No, I have world experience. I can't change that.
Yeah.
But getting the feedback of maybe you were awesome on the testing, but maybe you didn't do great in the interview, or
Yeah.
maybe you need to just work on those skills. I think that's the key. It's the feedback. If you
Yeah.
don't get it, find out why.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to learn and you're not going to improve unless you know what you did wrong, and you can learn from that and you can figure out a way to correct that in
Yeah.
the
No,
future.
that's good. That's good, Jamie. And as a matter of fact, what you just said, um, I don't have a bachelor's and I can't create that. And that was the feedback that I got, which was super helpful for me and definitely made me go through. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this in a minute. The emotional piece of this was they said you could not have done anything differently. As a matter of fact, I want to say that so that the next interview you go through for a similar role at that level, that you don't change anything. And
Mm-hmm.
really, you and the person that got the job, the tiebreaker, the deal breaker was that she had this enterprise experience that you just didn't have. And you can't create that. Your experience is your experience, and no feedback I can give you can make you create that. So that was right aligned to exactly the feedback I got. But I also want to back up. And for those people who maybe they don't understand, we talked about people just being rude and unprofessional. Corlin, you said that you didn't get a call back. You didn't, and that
Mm-hmm.
happens so many times, internally and externally. So let's let people know when you didn't get the job, how do you get that feedback? What is the what's the steps that someone goes through to make sure that they get that feedback?
Well, it's different though. I feel like in two different areas, because I feel, without sharing your story, Jess, you were doing an internal interview, right? With
Mm-hmm.
a company that you work with and you're looking to move positions. But I think that it's a little bit more challenging when it's just a cold interview into a completely different company. And
Yeah.
I hate that, you hate to set up yourself like, well, if I don't get this job, these are the things I want to do when they tell me no, kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think making sure that you get a business card, a LinkedIn connection, an email with the people that that you're interviewing with, and being proactive, not just
Yep.
even to get feedback, but making sure you do those little things at the end, whether or not you get the job, sending a thank you note,
Yep.
appreciate your time, and doing those things, I feel like, are important. But I also, the thing that I would say too, to add to, like, what do you do when you don't get the job, is just making sure that you are reflecting yourself, like replaying that whole interview back. And did you stutter over some question that they asked? Did you not know the answer? Did you not do your homework ahead of time and research the people you're meeting with, the company? I mean, I think that the job market now, from what I've heard from people that are actively pursuing other roles and careers, it's tough and it's
Yeah.
tight. If you are not on your game 100%, you're not going to get hired unless you have a pretty darn good referral or a networking piece. You
Yeah.
know, I think that you just got to make sure that you do the hard work ahead of time to prepare for that. And I feel like, Jamie, like what you did, like, you researched the crap out of the company that you did. We talked about a lot of different things that you did, that you wanted to do, preparing for your recent interview and your job role. Like, I just think that there's just a lot of homework you have to do on the front end.
Yeah. And I
You know,
think that's a
I
whole
don't want
nother
to
episode.
I don't want to interrupt, but I wanted to, as you were speaking, Corlin, it made me think about, as you interview with certain positions, maybe you don't get that position, but maybe you've made an impact on the person that interviewed you. Jess, you talked about that. Um, Keeping in contact with those people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There have been so many scenarios where people have come back to me 10 years later, 5 years later, 1 year later, whatever, where they've said, that wasn't really the right fit, or I didn't really know how you fit, but I like you, or
Yeah.
you've got something. Not necessarily speaking on myself, but I'm just saying, like, keep those contacts, because maybe you didn't get the job this time, but maybe that person remembers you a year down the road.
Are you
And they
saying that
have
it's
a better
not a no, it's a not yet?
Yeah.
That sounds.
I love it. Yeah.
I love
Say it
that
again,
saying.
Corlin, for those of us in the
We,
back. What is
right.
it?
It's not a no, it's just a not yet.
Yeah. Um, Listen, we live our lives, not just our professional lives. When I met my husband, he said no at first, and I'm like, he doesn't mean that. And he, guess what? It wasn't a no. It was a not yet. So I love that. I think this is really helpful. And Jamie, to your point right there, I think that is a really good takeaway, and that is staying in contact with those people. So that I think is really important because let's just be real. Sometimes there are things happening in the background that we don't know about. And that's really the real reason behind why you didn't get the job. So I know we interview is a competition, but it's not like a race, right? Where everybody starts at the same time and you get over the finish line and it is quite obvious who won the competition. Interviews are not like that. That's just not the way the world works. Corlin, you mentioned there's that network, and as we call it in the corporate world, that sponsorship and all of those other things that are happening in the background that are really not in your control. And sometimes it's not, did you actually win the competition? Just because you won the competition doesn't mean you get a job offer. So that there's that part, right? So here's another question I have is, if you can give your past self, and I know we talked about some really good advice, but I want to kind of get into the emotional impact, because listen, we're all similar in this way. And for me, I don't like losing. And there's been plenty of jobs that I went for that I didn't get the role, but I don't like losing. Especially, this is probably a job that I felt like I've been working the last 7 years for this job, and I wanted it, and I just knew it was mine, and I just could taste it. I was there. And I
Is that the
did.
same feeling that when you knew your son was going to be a girl when you were pregnant?
You know what? Yes. And
Was it the same?
Throw back to episode or season 1.
Right?
actually, it was exactly the same, because I bet I've never been so much. I was sure, and that's why his name is Hayden. And that's kind of how I felt about
I
this
love
job
that
too.
name, by the way.
Thank you. And so, yeah, that's because he was a girl. And that's kind of how I felt about this job. Like, I just knew it was mine. I did everything. When you talk about the research, which, by the way, I didn't get a job once. And that was the feedback I got, is that they felt like I could have done more homework on the company. And that is really what stood out with the other person. And we were both externals, by the way. So that was a good piece of advice. But I want to talk about the emotional impact, right? And that is, I was very disappointed, and I was really like beating myself up. So the faster I could get to the point of feedback, I knew for me that was important. So, one, I would say, don't sit and just wait for someone. The hiring manager was like, "Oh, you beat me to it. I was gonna," and like you said, this was internal. And she said, "You beat me to it. I was gonna set something up with you, and kind of give you feedback." And I beat everybody to it, because as soon as I heard,
that's like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a life lesson for all of us in
yeah,
management. Like, don't let them beat you to it.
yeah,
Be the person who knows this and relays the feedback first. Sorry.
yeah. And I reached out
Like,
saying,
God.
I want feedback. And like, Portland said, like every single person that was involved in this interview process, I reached out to the same day I got the news that I didn't get the job. And they responded right away. And I set up some time, and it was just really quick. Hey, love to grab a quick 15 minutes on your calendar to get any feedback that you have for me. Greatly appreciated. Thanks. That was it. And everybody got, and within that same week, I was on everyone's calendar to get that feedback. So when you think about, my next question is, when you think about the emotional impact and maybe thinking back through some times of not getting the job or just the interview process, because sometimes it's so long and drawn out. What's some advice in that area? For me, it's the faster you get to the feedback, the better you can get past the emotional impact that it has, because that feedback for me was really positive. It uplifted me and it left me saying, you know what? I freaking did the best that I could. And like she said, I couldn't freaking create experience that wasn't there. So that's what I would say for me. What do you guys got if you have
Well,
anything
also
in
with
that
you
area?
with that too, Jess. I mean, it's nice that, I mean, it's awesome that they gave you really positive feedback, and if they, you know, they said that you couldn't do anything different. But even if you get feedback and it's not as positive as that, take that as a plus. You, if it's not that it's not a, what is that cliche, like it's not a failure. It's, you either have a success or a lesson, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Yes.
and I
I
think
love that.
that that's true. Like you even though sometimes maybe what they might say might hurt your feelings, hurt your ego, might not be exactly what you think, or even a complete blind spot, like just kind of hit you like, what? That doesn't even sound like me. But if
Yeah.
somebody's telling you this is why you didn't get it, just take it for what it is, look at it. If there's something you can correct, do it and just learn from it, right?
Yeah.
I also
No,
would
I love that.
say too, the other thing I would say in terms of the emotional part of it, because I think that, I mean, with anything, I mean, whether it's a job or if it's something that you didn't completely knock out of the park, there's been some different things that have happened recently where I feel I've gotten fairly upset about the outcomes of things. And I was mad for a little bit, frustrated, but I felt like the instance you look back and like I was a little bit grieving the situation, right? I was just in the moment, but you can't stay there. And
Yeah.
repeatedly, I will have a conversation, and sometimes it's an out loud conversation with myself in the mirror. It sounds a little ridiculous, but I will,
No,
you
all
know,
the time.
I mean, just look at myself and say, okay, you have another 5 minutes to be mad about this,
Yeah.
and then we're moving on. You know, and you just have to, and I literally sometimes just have to tell myself that verbatim. It's fine to be sad about this, but we're moving on because we need
Yeah.
to be on to greener pastures.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think, and what I'm hearing is that it's okay. Like when I think about my feelings, it was, disappointment, frustration, anger, little bit of self-doubt, but I don't stay there very long. And the key to that is you have to have enough confidence and know what you bring to the table to kind of drown that out. But I think the key is wherever you're at, it's okay to be there. You just
Mhm.
can't stay there long, right? There's a
Yep.
sweet spot that you
Yeah.
just gotta keep moving, because if you stay there too long, and that's where it becomes dangerous in terms of the emotional impact. I read a stat on LinkedIn that said 75% of job seekers face rejection multiple times before landing their big role. And so that made me feel better, because to me, this was my first big role since being out of DB. And so these other ones have kind of just been the journey to, my number one goal
Mm.
is to get to the point where I'm not just leading people, but I'm leading leaders. And so that's my corporate aspiration, is to turn, good leaders into great leaders, because we have a major leadership problem, but that's another show. And so this was my first opportunity, or my first role that I went for, where I would actually be leading a director level leaders. So I thought that was interesting. And I want to just kind of move on to what I'm saying is more practical strategies to moving forward to, okay, so now what, right? I got the feedback. And what do I do with that feedback? Whether it is self reflection and looking to say, okay, now it's time for me to prepare for that next interview. I'm doing that from right now until then. So what's that next? Where are we at?
I have something here.
Yes.
Jess, I feel like the next step is you are the person interviewing them. Because you know your capabilities, you know your expertise, you know what you can do. And so when the next opportunity presents itself, you're leading that interview. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're getting the interview from them. Maybe you're responding to their advertisement or whatever. You're responding to them, but you don't need that job. That's a job that you kind of want, but keeping that confidence where you know I'm capable, I can do it, I've been doing this. What are you going to offer me? And leading that interview.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that because, again, I think that self doubt is the number one thing that I have found. And you know what's really cool, and this is where this becomes a God thing, and that because I have such a heart to serve other people that are going through similar things, I swear God put all of these people in my path during this week after that was such a distraction. I'm telling you, when I say so many people reached out and they were like, oh my God, I just went through this interview process. I didn't get the job. I just feel so this and this. And I was like, well, you know what, girl? I just went through an interview process and I didn't get the job.
Yes, you can relate.
It was perfect timing. And I just, every email I got about, and it was, I have this brand where people were like, okay, I'm stuck. What do I do? Or I didn't get the job and I feel like shit, or I just keep trying. And it just seemed like this week after that, there was just this email after email, and it really helped me because here I was giving other people advice on the same shit I was going through. So how could I not? I was talking to myself most of the time. And I was like, girl, you know who you are. You know what you bring to the
Exactly.
table.
You know who you are. You know what you're
That's
capable
it.
of. You know your worth.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
I would say a little bit more on the practical side. This is several years ago, but I went through an interview process where I had actually somebody who I would consider a sponsor. I learned that word from you, Jess. I've never thought in those terms before, but I just had a conversation with some other people about like this, like the sponsor is different than a mentor, different than a coach. It's somebody different.
Oh man,
I
that's
had
an
somebody.
episode.
I know, right?
We're gonna get to that.
But
Where's my pen?
So I had a sponsor at this new place of potential employment, but I sat down with her and I asked her what's the personality of the person that I'm meeting with, and she gave me all the things I needed to know about his personality, what he likes, what he doesn't like, how to answer questions, what types of questions do they normally ask. And this is the HR person. This is her personality. And I remember preparing for this interview for hours because I knew I wanted to get a yes at that interview. But I think that when your person told you don't do anything different, I mean, I think that you really have to double down on the practice and not say like, oh, I got this, and just like not take anything for granted. Practice as hard as you did for the first time, for the
Absolutely.
second time, and don't let yourself off your game because you think that, oh, if you did get some good feedback, like, oh, I got it. Like you need
Right.
to with that same confidence, but don't miss a dumb step, right? Like don't miss that little bit of practice or that little bit of research you can do to make sure that you can still knock this one out of the park the same way you did the last one, right?
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. And I think what I'm hearing there is that, and usually we all get some feedback, right? And so even when you get that feedback that you could have done nothing differently, I'm even thinking back to say, okay, for example, the feedback they gave me was that she had enterprise experience that aligned with the role, and that was what they found to be the tiebreaker.
Mm,
So, you know what I took away from that? And this was just through, like, I felt better, but I still wanted to, I can't accept there's nothing I could have done differently. That's just me. I'm not going to
yeah.
accept that.
No.
And to your point,
Same.
Corlin, so what I thought to myself was, okay, even though she had enterprise experience that aligned with the role, I need to take a step back and say, how could I have told my story in a way that my experience showed that it aligned well with the role?
Mm.
Right. So that was my takeaway. My takeaway was, okay, because here's my strategy for my 10-year plan in corporate America. I change roles and go to a completely different business within the business every 2.5 years. So this is something I'm going to come up to again because I'm not from the automotive industry. I'm not going to have that story that someone else has. I come from the home remodeling and furnishing industry, which has shit to do with the automotive industry. So I have to figure
Well,
out a
you do have a
way.
garage, right, in your house, like you do.
I drive a car,
Right.
and that's basically it. So that was my takeaway. My takeaway was that I have to be able to tell my story in a way, because enterprise experience is the automotive industry, and that is what she had that I didn't have.
Well, and the other
So I
thing too
have
with that, I have to give you kudos on this, Jess, is that I think that there's a possibility for me if I was interviewing with somebody and they told me I knocked out of the park, I might not have went back and revisited that conversation and found the nugget where you thought okay, if I would have shared my story a little different, maybe I could have got it to resonate better. I could have filled that gap that they thought that I had and made it
right.
like, so I think that's a great piece of advice too, is like, even though you might think that you're covered, still take a second look and make sure
Yeah.
that you've got, like, is there anything I could have taken away and done bit different or better?
Yeah, no, I'm giving myself some homework. I do not accept no homework. I don't accept that. Listen, ladies, we are at time. This is a great conversation. And I really appreciate your support because that's another way that I was able to get through the emotional impact is because I had my sisterhood here. And I was
We
like,
love you very,
as
very
soon
much.
as I heard, I'm like, y'all bitches are not gonna believe
I
this shit.
know.
I did not get the damn
I sent the
job.
angry devil face.
Girl.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was
Like
I
the
I'm so
hot red
glad that you
emoji.
reached out to us because I was like, oh, I mean, I was like, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Yeah. And
We're
listen,
there for
and you
you.
guys,
You know.
you said the right things at the right moment. And so here's just some takeaways that I got from this. And that is, um, when you don't get the job, sometimes it's not about getting the job, right? Sometimes it's you're right where you're supposed to be, and you didn't get that job for a reason because the better job is coming,
Mm-hmm.
which has always been the case for me. When you're sitting in that space of anger and defeat and frustration and self doubt, it's okay to feel that way. You just can't sit there too long. And then get feedback as soon as possible. Do something with it. Self reflect, right? So, those were my nuggets that I took away from this conversation. And I hope that you guys found value in this conversation. Let us know. Again, I'll circle back to uh, we need you on YouTube, okay? Lead Like a Girl Lab on YouTube, on Facebook, our website, Instagram, TikTok. We want to bring conversations that are valuable. I wrote some notes. I have a couple of conversations that I think we can have out of this conversation. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if there's anything else that you ladies want to add
The only thing I want to add is when you're feeling frustrated, reach out to your tribe.
and drink
Mm.
wine.
Just
And
yeah,
maybe have a sip of wine.
maybe have a
Right.
sip of wine, but
Let's
reach out to your
cheers,
friends,
ladies.
because you'll be surprised
Jamie,
when you think you're alone. You're not alone, and
you're
so
not
Mm.
ever.
reach out to your
Can you
friends.
cheers? I know you have something in
Cheers.
that Wonder
She's
Woman
trying to
glass.
say something emotional, and you're
No. I have this much of a glass of beer left. So here's.
And listen,
Cheers.
that glass, I love that glass because that's so you. She is such a freaking.
Love you guys.
All right. Thanks, ladies. Until next time, leadlikeagirllab.com. Thank you.